Hi.
Hi,
Hi. How you doing?
that's good. Pretty good.
We're we're recording this kind of late for us. This
It
is sort
is.
of, yeah, at this movie after dark.
It's late.
Yeah, it's late. All right. So we're doing a mailbag episode. So thank you to everybody who sent in questions. We always appreciate it. And we'll just jump right in.
Yeah.
So the first question is from Alexis, and she asked, "Why don't you review more kids movies? And could you do a review on The Little Mermaid 2023?" So I will answer the second question first. Yes, but I feel weird seeing that in the theater, so I will see it when it comes on streaming. And when it is on Disney Plus, we will definitely do a review for you on that one.
We will review that. The first question, why don't we do more kids movies? Kids movies, I mean, we could. They don't come out as often as they used to, do they? I don't know.
Yeah, I it's tough because I think our audience kind of at large would probably prefer us to talk about maybe kids movies that were movies when it came out when we were
From
kids.
the 80s and 90s.
Um, but I honestly like in a lot of cases with kids movies nowadays, I don't know what I would say about a lot of them. Like if I saw like the
Yeah.
Teenage Ruby, Teenage Kraken, or something like that. Like I don't know. It's tough because we're not the target audience for that
Right.
anymore. So like it sort of seems like at best what we could say is, oh, it's good and it even works for adults, or this is more for kids and I see kids enjoying them. So it's a tougher conversation too, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Next question. All right. Let's start with one from our friend Chris. Uh, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny released this past weekend.
Yeah.
Hopefully you saw it, and you're not one of the people being an asshole about it on the internet. Rank the indie movie.
Mine are weird because Raiders of the Lost Ark is definitely number one.
Mhm.
Number two is probably, I could say it was a tie because Last Crusade holds a very special place in my heart just because that was the first Indiana Jones I saw in the theater and I was like really young. I was like seven, and that made me a fan of the franchise. And it helped. It's where I kind of became a Sean Connery fan, and it's where I became, a Harrison Ford fan because I wasn't really a Star Wars kid.
Sure.
But I think Temple of Doom maybe has the better action sequences
Mhm.
of the two movies. So it's like kind of whatever mood I'm in. I guess I would give the edge maybe to Last Crusade 2
Okay.
and then Temple of Doom 3. And then I kind of have a similar thing. I've only seen Dial of Destiny once, but I kind of have a similar thing with Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny where I can't pick one necessarily because I think Dial of Destiny is a better movie than Crystal Skull, but I would rather rewatch Crystal Skull than rewatch Dial of Destiny
Right.
right now.
I think I'm in a similar place. Raiders is number one. I have grown. It's probably Patrick's influence, and I hate to attribute it just to that, but I really have grown to appreciate Temple of Doom
Mm-hmm.
in the last few years. So just for the sake of variety, I'm going to put Temple of Doom second because it does take chances. It does do something that reflects a very specific emotional place from the creators. Obviously, we don't have to get into it. Everybody knows the story of Spielberg and Lucas going through divorces and all that stuff, and that's why that movie is so sort of not mean spirited, but it's got an edge to it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but Last Crusade is just incredibly watchable and incredibly fun, and as you said, there's just so much joy in that movie that I could watch either of those anytime.
Yeah.
Isle of Destiny, I wrote a positive review on. I liked Isle of Destiny. I don't know really
Mm-hmm.
know what to say. It's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's certainly not as bad as I've seen some people talk about on the internet. And I did rewatch Crystal Skull in the last couple of days, and I, like anybody, fell victim to the Crystal Skull bashing at the time. If you were there at the time Crystal Skull came out, it was sort of, I don't want to say universally panned, but it was a complex reaction, I think, from a lot of people. Went back and rewatched it, and it's a totally entertaining, watchable movie. There's nothing wrong with Crystal Skull. And so I would put Dial of Destiny a little higher just because I do think Ford is really good in that movie, and I think that the movie is doing I said this in my review. I think that movie should be celebrated for the things it doesn't do more so
Mhm.
than for the things that should. It could have very easily fallen into some really, really bad legacy sequel traps, and I didn't. And I think some people maybe right now are taking that for granted.
Yeah, I rewatched Crystal Skull around Memorial Day weekend, and I it was the first time I'd seen it since '08,
Yeah.
and I liked it more than I did then. But I don't like the look of that movie. I think it's really kind of too bright, and the color timing looks sort of bleached in a way
Yeah, it's
that's
our friend
sort
Yanni
of
Smith.
visually unappealing.
Yeah.
And then I just don't like some of the characters like Mac and Kate Blanchett's character are not my faves. And I was never like a huge mutt basher. Like I kind of
No.
went along with people. Like, but I thought his character wasn't as bad as people thought that it was. It's I think he caught like a lot of shit because of the swinging on a vine sequence, which anybody who was doing that would have gotten bashed. It didn't have to be mutt. And then with Dial of Destiny, like I think Chris's question kind of came from like I tweeted after I saw Dial of Destiny, just all caps, I have mixed feelings.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean I do want to settle on my feelings after a second viewing a little bit more, but I don't know. I was with it for maybe the first hour, and then I think that it kind of suffers from bloat and sort of suffers from just the what a 2023 movie is now and what a Disney movie is now, and it didn't feel like it had the humor and spontaneity in the action sequences that Spielberg brings to the other movies. So I like you said, I mean, like I'm more leaning towards I'm kind of in the middle, but I would be more like middle affectionate than middle like down on it, if that makes sense. All right, so our next question comes from Rosalie, who asks, "Who are your top five actors who started in TV and made the leap to movies? And is there anyone in a TV show now that you would like to see make this transition?"
Yeah.
So, Rob, I'll let you start because I know that you have an answer for the second question, which I do not because I don't really watch TV.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like I literally had to like look at my shelf and look at like, okay, who was on shows that I like, like so
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like, the entire cast of like Succession, which although some of those guys have already been in movies, I'm looking at the cast of like Community, some of those guys have already been in movies. Um,
Mhm.
I did think that I know that Jake Johnson had a brief run in the movies. He was in the Mummy movie and he did the Cops movie and all that.
Mhm.
Obviously most famous from New Girl, which Patrick and I were just talking about last week. So I've got New Girl on the brain. I would have loved to have seen him have more of a comic leading man career in movies. I also can understand why he doesn't though, because they don't really make vehicles like that anymore. They don't really
Yeah.
make vehicles for that kind of comedian anymore. But Adam,
Did you ever see Win It All on Netflix with Jake Johnson?
no, I don't think
It's
so.
really good. I would
Yeah.
recommend that if you
He's
like him.
done movies. He's doing Drinking
Yeah.
Buddies and stuff like that. Like I know he's done
Yeah.
movies. Like he's been
Yeah.
in plenty of movies. It's just
Mhm.
that I think he could have, if he had wanted to, I think he could have been more of a comedy leading man. He could have had a very similar career to those guys. Adam, who are your picks for the first part of Rosalie's question, which was the people who made the transition from TV to movies?
Well, putting it to five is tough, so I might go outside of that rule to this question. But I was kind of trying to compartmentalize it in there's obvious ones like you could say Tom Hanks, you could
Right.
say Denzel Washington, you could say Robin Williams, you could say John Travolta, but like I didn't watch those shows mainly
Right.
because I was too young to watch those, so that kind of felt like a cheat. Of the ones that like I was watching those shows and it was just sort of like undeniable that this person will be in movies and has had a successful career. I thought like Woody Harrelson
Yeah.
totally made sense. His career I could not have predicted from him playing Woody on Cheers, but I mean that's just kind of goes to show like what an impressive actor he is. There was always something we talked about this during the Shakes the Clown review last week. There was something always kind of undeniable about Adam Sandler.
100%.
Um, George Clooney on ER,
Yeah.
Will Smith on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You knew that TV wasn't going to contain him. Michael J. Fox on Family Ties. Some of the more recent ones, I was way ahead of the curve, I guess, on Seth Rogen because I was a Freaks and Geeks and Undeclared fan.
Yeah.
I thought he was the funniest guy on TV during that time. You could say the same thing about like Jason Segel. He was great on
Mhm.
Freaks and Geeks. And then for female actors, Aubrey Plaza and Allison Brie,
Yeah.
you could totally tell that they just kind of had an it factor from their NBC shows. And Jennifer Aniston is somebody that I've grown to really appreciate over the years because anytime I see her kind of play the second lead in a comedy, she's always doing the grunt work,
Yeah.
while the other guys are kind of screwing around in the background or like winning points off of the joke. She's always the one kind of like who's the glue to the actual story and making you care about what's going on. And I think she's kind of an invaluable resource in comedies. One thing I heard that was really interesting, this was something I just kind of heard randomly a few weeks ago. Um, it was a story that like Steve Harvey was talking about being at an award show with Denzel Washington, and he said that people would go up to Denzel Washington and be like, "Mr. Washington, it is a privilege to meet you. Like, I enjoy your acting so much and everything like that." And then he said that people would go up to him, to Steve Harvey, and just go, "Hey, Steve, what's up, man? How's it
Yeah.
going?" And then Denzel Washington said, "You know why they do that, right?" And he goes, "No, why?" And he says, "Because if you're on a screen and that's how on a movie screen and they see you 12 feet high and that's the only time they see you, then they see you as like a god or like larger in life, but you're like a member of the family that they invite into their home because you're coming to them on television." And he's like, and that's the dynamic. And I think there's a lot of truth to that of like why certain people can't bridge it one way. It's like if I'm seeing you on TV like and not paying for it in quotes, then like why do I have to pay like to see you on a movie screen and stuff like that? So like there is a little bit of that element to it too. All right, our next question comes from Dave, and he says, "What are your thoughts on streaming services editing their content without director input?" So for me, that's like, yeah, I mean, like I think pretty much anybody kind of
Loaded question.
in our situation would have the same answer. I mean, like I'm against it. I am not as worked up, and I don't mean this as a pejorative. I'm not as worked up about it as other people are because um for in the US, like we can't watch French Connection on Disney Plus anyway.
Right.
So like or like Criterion Channel and stuff like I understand that maybe that was happening there too. But this could have all been avoided if if Disney just stuck to having like banners like Hollywood Pictures or Touchstone,
Yeah.
where it's just like we understood that like these are made by the company, but like these are
adults.
for adults. And of course, there's going to be kind of a weirdness, like if you have to put the Disney logo associated with the French Connection or like movies like that. So I guess or Splash, I remember they covered up like nudity, like rear nudity on Daryl Hannah and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, like a certain part of me is just kind of like these are the things that the quote unquote the man wants us to worry about and wants us to get worked up about to take our minds off of things that they're doing that are even worse. So I try not to get too much into these debates. I understand that it's important and it has to do with censorship and everything like that, but those copies of French Connection are not erased forever. That are the original cuts. Just don't buy them right away, and you won't have to spend $100 on it.
The answer,
So
well, I was going to say the answer is buy physical media. That's the answer.
yeah,
I guess along a similar line, question from Movie Hero. Thoughts on Apple's deal with theaters to put their next few big releases in theaters, like Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon? Do you think some of the other services should follow this lead and at least put some of their larger, more anticipated movies in theaters? And this is an interesting question considering the last couple of years with COVID and then the after COVID, and we got to see in real time some of the studios experimenting with this stuff.
I mean, there's some studios that seem more filmmaker friendly where it doesn't even matter like necessarily the rewards. They just want the prestige of being associated with a Ridley Scott for Napoleon or Martin
Yeah,
Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. Um, so Apple seems to be like real pro filmmaker right now, but Netflix was like that a couple years ago.
I was gonna
So
say.
I think it kind of just evolves. As far as the question of like yeah, I wish more studios would do that where they play in theaters. I think that the quality of a lot of the streaming services movies don't really warrant these movies being in theaters. Like you don't need to see you people in theaters and stuff
Right.
like that. So
Not to say that we don't wish movies like You People still went to theaters, because we've talked a lot
yeah,
about the $30 million comedy. We wish there was still mid budget movies, but the
yeah,
current landscape is just not set up for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but like I think of the movies that do have a chance from a streaming service of making it to theaters, they were always going to find a way to get there. Like a Todd Haynes movie is always going to find a way to have like a 2 week run in theaters, or a Scorsese or a Ridley Scott movie. Like whether it's just like, or Glass Onion, I guess is like the weirdest example because they only let that play in theaters for like a week.
Right.
But those movies are gonna like just win out just by PR and the talent involved and stuff like that. Um, so I think we're always going to be like okay, I guess, in this
Yeah.
current
I mean, it should be said,
landscape.
a lot of
Uh,
those deals for theaters, of course, are, for awards consideration, awards qualification, things like that. The Academy's
yeah.
had to change their rules considering, what can be considered for Best Picture and so on and so forth. So a
Mhm.
lot of that is just sort of corporate gamesmanship. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't know, the revenue model for theatrical exhibition. I still don't know how it comes back. I mean, I know Tom Cruise saved movie theaters last year, but then we're seeing Dial of Destiny, it's a bomb because it only made $60 million in its opening 2 days,
Yeah.
or whatever it was. And you say to yourself, well, that's a perfectly reasonable take for any movie that didn't cost $300 million before, P&A and all that. So you're wondering, like, is theatrical distribution even the prestige it used to be?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, what does it even look like in 10 years? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like the tricky thing is they haven't figured out how to monetize the current model.
Right.
They just they it's like they got sold a bag of magic beans on streaming and they're like realizing that all they did was shoot themselves in both feet because
Yeah,
streaming isn't bringing in the revenue, but then also they screwed up theatrical exhibition and then they screwed
exactly.
up cable and they screwed up home video and stuff like that.
So
And
then the
yeah,
question becomes, does everything shrink to a manageable budget level for streaming services where every movie is basically $30 million maximum? You know what I mean? Every movie is an Extraction 2 or something like that, where it's not big enough for one thing, but not so small that it feels inadequate. I don't know.
the thing that's confusing to me is like how like can a studio even make that kind of movie anymore? Like do they even know how to?
Right.
Because even the things like I don't know the budget on Extraction 2, but like that might also be like $100 million
Yeah.
movie. Or like you said, like Dial of Destiny was reported to be like 295 million. Fast X was supposed to be like 340 million. Little Mermaid 250 million. And the Flash 200 million and stuff like that. Like even if they wanted to, like, could they make those movies for $50 million or $70 million? Like, I don't
You know,
know if they know how to do it
yeah.
anymore. So it's a big problem, and I think that what's going to end up happening, it's not going to look like how we want it to look. It's never going to go back.
No.
But I think this is unsustainable, and it will blow up, and it will turn into something else. And then our last question, and Rob, I'm not sure, have you seen Free Willy or not?
Free Willy, of course.
Okay, all right. I
Yes.
I always confuse it because I think Camaro and Patrick especially have not.
Oh, I've seen Free Willy.
So I'm not sure. Okay, so the question is from Jackson. He says, I mean, with the 30th anniversary only a few weeks away, it makes sense for you to drop some thoughts on this one. So my thoughts are available and plentiful, so I want to hear your thoughts first, Rob.
My thoughts are easy. They're compact. They come in a two-word package, and that package is Lori Petty. Short-haired queen, one of my original movie crushes.
Yeah.
Between this and A League of Their Own, Lori Petty means a lot to me. I haven't actually watched Free Willy in a long time, but it was definitely in the VHS rotation. The Michael Jackson song was a huge part of that whole phenomenon.
Did I ever tell you my story about meeting Lori Petty at like a Wizard World Con
I'm
and
sure
getting
you
a Free
have, but
Willy?
tell us
I got
again.
a Free Willy poster signed by
Yes.
her. And the thing I'll always remember is I was like, "How's your day going?" Stuff like that, just like chatting. And she's just like, "If I'm being honest, it's kind of not great right now." And I knew what she meant because she was next to pop star Taylor Dane, and
Oh.
Taylor Dane was blasting her own music on a boombox. And Taylor Dane has like maybe five like top 40 singles. So it was just like a loop of like those songs. And
Yeah.
you could see that it was like water torture to poor Lori Petty. So Free Willy for me is like a huge movie of my youth. I think part of it is because I it was sort of a joke when it came out. Like I remember the trailer played before Jurassic Park and it got like bad laughs and it was kind of like they showed the whole movie and stuff like that. Because they showed like the that movie's iconic shot of the whale jumping over Jason James Richter. But then yeah, I caught up with it on video and I just fell for its sincerity. And over the years, I've grown to appreciate it more and more because I think it has a lot in common with two movies that I hold really near and dear to me now. One is Saturday Night Fever, because it's really just at the heart of it about somebody who's clumsily trying to find their way to becoming a better person and like their better humanity coming out, but it's just not in like a pure way. It's like happening in a very kind of rough around the edges way.
Sure.
And then also it shares a lot in common with ET. One of the things that moves me the most about ET is at the end when ET goes up on his spaceship. Of course, it's sad because we want him to be with Elliot, but I keep thinking back on Peter Coyote's line of like him being here is a miracle, and I'm so glad he met you first.
Right.
And that kind of is like whether it's Elliot and ET or Jesse and Free Willy, it's like this is something that is going to hold them together during tough times later in life because they know that something kind of like a miracle can happen and like something amazing can happen and I think this experience will like really make them have better lives going forward, so I find that really moving. And yeah, I think the movie's just really special in the sense that it's about how difficult it is to just when you know in your gut and in your heart that something's wrong, to stand up to the powers that be and force change. And there's like a quote basically about like your life is what you allow yourself to tolerate, and that's sort of this whole thing where it's just like we can't let this happen anymore. Whether it be Jesse, how he is living on the streets and not having a family, and or Willie, who's in captivity and shouldn't be in captivity, and the only reason he's there is for financial interests. And it's ironic that the movie's made by Warner Brothers, and they want to kill the whale for insurance because that's not what David Zaslav does.
I'll tell you what, folks. I'm gonna rewatch Free Willy after hearing that. If you don't rewatch Free Willy after hearing Adam's impassioned advocacy for it, I don't know. Do you even like movies? I don't even know what to tell you.
I'm seeing it for the first time in theaters in a couple weeks, so I'm really
Nice.
excited about it. God bless 30th anniversaries, I guess.
I'm definitely gonna rewatch Free Willy now. That's awesome.
But yeah, thank you everybody for all of your questions. We really appreciate it, as always. And we're going to be back next week with an episode we're both really excited for, where Rob has been on a tear this summer reading Stephen King,
Yes.
and he had the great suggestion to do an episode of unseen Stephen King movies.
Hmm.
So Rob, what did you pick?
I picked Dolores Claiborne, which I've never seen, and just finished reading the book.
Yeah, I just recently saw that. It's a very good movie, and it's got one of my favorite actors, Kathy Bates, in it. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
see that again. And then I'm picking Firestarter, which is a movie I've meant to see for like 11 scary movie months in a row and just never got around to. Of course, the Drew Barrymore one, not the Zac Efron. So happy July 6th, everyone. I hope your July 4th was great. If you're watching this on its drop date. If not, just hi. Just how you
How
doing?
you doing? What's going on? How are things there?
Yeah.
Was work good today? You know,
Hmm.
your back all right? How's your posture? You sitting up straight? Sit up straight. Can't slouch.
No
Gotta
slouching.
don't slouch. Gotta sit up
Yeah,
straight.
we're putting in no slouch July.
Do your homework, eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
Until next time.
These seats are reserved. That's it.
That's it. There's no shit.
No shit. That's it.